Major news today as the Giants DFA LaMonte Wade Jr. I'm not convinced they're a better team after this flurry of moves, but hey, something had to be done.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please just hit that subscribe button right now, wherever it is that you are following the show. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And coming up on today's show, Giants have DFA'd LaMonte Wade Jr. after several seasons in San Francisco, came over in a trade and has been a Giant since 2021 and their primary first baseman for quite a while, 488 career games, DFA'd after just a miserable start to the 2025 season. They signed Dominic Smith, who was, out there after opting out of a minor league deal with the Yankees, and I'm not convinced they're better for it. And they also make other moves, and I'm ultimately going to make the case that I think something had to be done, yes, but I don't think this necessarily makes them that much better at all. But I do believe this is just a temporary thing, and that there's a bigger move coming. So getting into the news of the hour, LaMonte Wade Jr. being designated for assignment is certainly major news for the San Francisco Giants. And it comes amidst a season in which he was hitting 167 with a 275 on base and a 271 slugging. It was a 58 weighted runs created plus, and he produced negative 1.1 FanGraphs wins above replacement. And so, that's the type of thing where you don't need to qualify to see where he ranks. He ranks third worst among all players in baseball with that negative 1.1 FanGraphs wins above replacement. And so, that's basically saying even just a replacement level player like a Dominic Smith type would, in theory, have netted you an extra win just by existing on the roster. And the 58 weighted runs created plus, that's where we do need to set a minimum. Wade had 169 plate appearances, and if we set the minimum to 160, there's, I think, 206 players, who qualify for this, and Wade's weighted runs created plus of 58 ranked 12th worst among 206 players with at least 160 plate appearances. By the way, Patrick Bailey with a 50 weighted runs created plus ranks 5th worst. So they had two regulars in the lineup who were among the 12 worst offensive players with at least 206 plate appearances. And so this deep into the season, this is when you start to draw conclusions about your team, and it's not like small sample anymore. And so they felt the need to shake things up. There were kind of some now what look like ominous quotes from Buster Posey, who met with the media yesterday, and he talked about not being satisfied with the offense at all, and especially at first base. He said, there's a quote, I got a ton of quotes in here, but he basically said they are just absolutely not satisfied and that they were exploring all options. And so, he said there's definitely, from our perspective as a front office, we're not satisfied with the production, so we're trying to exhaust all options. And this was in the context of the fact that top prospect, 20-year-old, 6'7" Bryce Eldridge, a first baseman, was promoted to AAA yesterday, and that's major news. We're going to save that news and get into it more at a later date. I mean, it'll kind of factor into what I'm going to argue today, which is that I think Dominic Smith is just a placeholder, or at least I hope he is. I can't imagine that they view him as much more than that, like the long-term solution at first base. He's not. But I do understand if you want to make the argument that LaMonte Wade Jr. was just killing them and something had to be done at first base, then it's hard to say you're wrong. Like I can't disagree with that at all. So if we look at team batting stats and we look at the first base position, Giants players, when they were in the lineup as a first baseman, rank second last in baseball with negative .9 Fangraphs wins above replacement, only ahead of the Colorado Rockies, who are off to a historically bad start. And so, I read a little piece on MLB trade rumors, and they mentioned it in these terms, and I'll repeat it, that among contenders, the Giants have by far the worst first base production in the major leagues. And I haven't been even wanting to look at the standings because these losses have been so tough. Last night's game broke me almost. It's so hard to watch right now how they cannot score. And then you finally, their pitching has been heroic, but then Camilo Doval blows a 2-run game. Giants are only half a game out of a playoff spot, so they're not doomed by any means, and their run differential of plus 40 remains the fourth best in the National League. And so things could definitely turn around for them, but it has just been a brutal offensive stretch where they haven't scored more than 4 runs in a game for 16 games. Man, I pull up the Giants website and it's asking me to vote their position players to the All-Star team. No, thank you right now. Not now, Giants, not now. So, it's just been a ridiculously rough stretch, and LaMonte Wade Jr. was at the center of that, and I think that something had to be shaken up. I understand that, but I'm not convinced that signing Dominic Smith to a major league deal, which was part of a flurry of moves for the Giants, is really going to move the needle. But again, you can convince me that if he hits, at an average rate, that is a major improvement from what they've received from Wade. But you could also convince me, and I don't need someone to convince me, I might just say myself that I'd rather see a young player like Casey Schmidt continue to get opportunities. He has hit the ball well and has not gotten results, but he's played good defense at first base and it's just seemingly been unlucky. Like, he has a 344 expected weighted on base average and a 265 actual weighted on base average. So 80 points below the expected numbers for Casey Schmidt. And I've seen it with my eyes. He's hit a lot of balls hard that have been caught. But this wasn't the only move that was made. I should mention Christian Koss, who's been on the roster all season. He was optioned to AAA after the game yesterday. They also designated Sam Huff, the backup catcher, for assignment, and they signed Dominic Smith to a 1-year major league deal. He's expected to be in the lineup tonight per Alex Pavlovich, and they selected the contracts of Daniel Johnson, and who's an outfielder, and catcher Andrew Knizner from AAA. And Knizner is having kind of a monster season across 2 organizations this year, was having in AAA a monster year. And so we'll get into those signings. We'll talk about Dominic Smith, who figures to be the primary first baseman right now, in just a minute, and break down why I don't think he's the long-term answer, but maybe could be a decent placeholder. We'll get into it in just a second. And before we do, Today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. For me, instead of having all my accounts scattered all over the place where it's just so hard to keep track, having it all in one hub with Monarch Money has just been absolutely game-changing. So, do the same. I encourage you, take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, here we go. We're going to get into new Giant Dominic Smith. It's funny, I had a little Twitter battle with someone the other day saying, like, they were encouraging that the Giants should sign Dominic Smith, and I was like, no, he's not the answer. And here they go, they do it. Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking down the next game here for the Giants. It's been just miserable, but life goes on. They've got another game. Kyle Harrison on the mound again. Nick Pivetta, who's been great for the Padres. Giants have to face him. So we'll see if the Giants can avoid going down 3-0 in this series, or if they can give themselves a shot to split the 4-game series in the finale. This is a big game for the Giants. We'll break it down tomorrow, but there's also so much more to get into, including the promotion of Bryce Eldridge. And I mean, that's the biggest deal of all, but there's a lot else too going on with this team right now. So stay tuned. And anyway, getting to Dominic Smith, new, I suppose, primary first baseman for the San Francisco Giants. You know, he's been absolutely not spectacular in his career. He's just been very much like the definition of mid. He's like, I mean, you go back and you look at his career, and he had 2 seasons, 2019, 2020. If you combine those 2 years, 139 games, he hit .299 with a 366 on base and 571 slugging. So that was really good. But other than that, and then if you add it all together and look at the career numbers, he's been about 4% below Major League average offensively. Wade in his career, by the way, about 8% above average offensively. And Dominic Smith has produced a whopping grand total of minus 0.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement in his career. So like kind of the definition of a replacement level player. 0 would be replacement level. Whereas Wade in his career, in 1,834 plate appearances, has produced 4 Fangraphs wins above replacement. Dominic Smith has about 400 more plate appearances and has produced, again, negative 0.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement. So if you're just looking at the body of work, the career numbers, it's not an upgrade. But if Smith can play to his career numbers, and for some reason we're just assuming Wade won't play to his career numbers, then it's an upgrade. But I would tend to assume that a player at any given time is going to kind of revert to their career norms. And so, great. If Smith can do it and Wade couldn't, that's an upgrade. But maybe Wade could do it. And actually, if you look at Wade's last 15 games played, he's been about league average offensively. And so he did just get hit in the hand. Maybe he's going to miss time anyway. Maybe he was going to be put on the IL anyway. The thing about Dominic Smith, first of all, he's a left-handed hitter. He was a first-round pick by the Mets in 2013. He's 29 years old. He'll turn 30 this month on the 15th. And he's spent time with, he was drafted and developed and played with the Mets And then he played for the Nationals in 2020, 2023. And then in 2024, he played, well, it's always a good sign to me when I see that he had a little minor league stint with the Tampa Bay Rays, because that organization definitely knows what they're doing. And he also spent time in the Yankees organization. It says 2 teams in MLB in 2024. Oh, Boston and Cincinnati, major league time. So he was with the Rays minor league team in 2024, and then in the majors with Boston and Cincinnati. He was okay with Boston, solid, like very mid and okay, and then somehow ended up in Cincinnati. I don't know if it was a trade or they DFA, or if Boston DFA'd him, but he wasn't very good with the Reds in 9 games. And then this year with the Yankees, 45 games in AAA, where he was very mid even in AAA, a 106 weighted runs created plus in AAA. But the thing to note about, he was designated for assignment by Boston. He cleared waivers and was released, and then he signed a deal with the Reds. And then he was DFA'd by the Reds and also cleared waivers and elected free agency. So this is not exactly a guy that teams are desperately trying to sign. It's like replacement level. And so the word place is even in there, like placeholder is kind of what I see this as. But I want to point out that we're talking about that negative 0.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement in his whole career. I need to be fair and point out that a lot of that is likely, I don't know how to parse it out, but he's played a lot of outfield in his career, 1,334 innings out there, negative 12 defensive runs saved, negative 20 outs above average. And so that defensive performance is has played a significant role in his career wins above replacement. Like that gets factored in a major way. Whereas at first base in his career, he's played 3,009 2/3 innings and 0 defensive runs saved and -7 outs above average. But most of those negative numbers coming since 2020 and before. If you look at the last 3 years, and he played a lot in 2023, it's been all above average. And so you're probably getting what looks to me like average-ish or maybe a little better than that defense at first base, left-handed hitter, left-handed thrower, and he's been just average-ish at the plate as well. And from a base running perspective, not good. So you're not getting a fast player here. He has 5 career steals. He did steal 4 bases in AAA with the Yankees this year and was not caught. So we'll see. But the sprint speed, I'll head over to Baseball Savant and see if we can grab a little snippet of his recent sprint speeds. And yeah, he's consistently been a slow player. Most recently, 12th percentile. His arm strength is rating as 1st percentile. So first basemen don't throw a lot, but we'll see what that looks like. His squared up rate in 2023 was 84th percentile. So squaring up the ball, which is something the Giants have had a tough time doing. His swing length is short, 79th percentile, and outs above average has ranked pretty good, 69th percentile in 23 and 76th percentile in 2024. Strikeout rate, good, but expected on base percentage in 2023 was solid. Expected batting average in 2023 was solid, but doesn't hit the ball particularly hard. Just kind of mid, kind of the definition of mid. But again, if they get that, it is an upgrade. Like they've lost a win essentially, is what Fangraphs is calculating, just by having a guy like Wade performing the way he has versus Dominic Smith performing the way he does in his career. Although, again, if you take outfield play out of it, I think he's probably been a better player than replacement level just by a little bit. But the hitting, it's not like he's got massive platoon splits, and I don't mean that in a positive way. He, you can't leverage his bat, and start him against righties and feel great about it. He's hit about league average against right-handed pitching, about league average offense, and about 10% below league average offense against left-handed pitching, which means he could play, you don't have to platoon him, but it's like a low ceiling is what I'm saying. Except he did have those big years in 2019 and 2020, which is kind of random and weird. But after that, and besides that, and if you look at the whole body of work, there's nothing to be too excited about. Now, these other players that the Giants called up or selected from AAA, Daniel Johnson and Andrew Knizner. Daniel Johnson was signed to a minor league deal recently by the Giants, as was Andrew Knizner. And how do you spell? It's with an N, Knizner with an N, Knizzer. Okay, so both of these guys are intriguing to me in a different, especially Knizner. So they do DFA Sam Huff, and Knizner, my goodness, I mean, he was absolutely tearing it up in the minor leagues this year with the Nationals and the Giants combined. It is a 31 game sample, 129 plate appearances, but a 15% walk rate and a 14% strikeout rate and a 185 weighted runs created plus. And if you look at projection systems, ATC has him as an above average bat, and Steamer has him as a roughly league average bat. So ATC also roughly league average. So, and the Fangraphs old scouting report, he was a 2020 graduate, and the final write-up on him as a graduate, as a prospect, was if Knizner could catch, he'd be an everyday player. But he scuffled during the fits and starts of his early big league career. So I suppose defense is a question for Knizner, but that's kind of been the same story with Sam Huff, and he also didn't hit. So maybe Knizner can hit a little bit. We'll see. So coming up in just a minute, we'll wrap up looking at Knizner. We'll look at Daniel Johnson, and we will discuss the long-term solutions versus this being a short-term solution, in my opinion. And also maybe take a step back and look at the moves that Buster Posey has now made as president of baseball operations. It's not exactly the best track record. We'll see if these moves prove to be good, but we'll take a look at those moves in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you in part by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you will find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. I did when I needed a piece for a unit in my bathroom, and it was a super easy process, came very fast as well. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free TradeMaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the TradeMaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, here we go. We're going to get into, finishing up talking about Andrew Knizner and Daniel Johnson being added to the Major League roster and why so far, I'm just kind of not impressed with the moves overall that this front office has made. And hopefully Dominic Smith is just a placeholder for a bigger move down the line. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking down the rest of this Padres series and also the big news of what was going to be today, that Bryce Eldridge was promoted to AAA. Giants' top prospect, 20 years old, dominating in AA as a 20-year-old, 6'7", first baseman. So that is significant news there, and we will dive more into that tomorrow. But all of this plays into today's moves as well. I really do see Dominic Smith as just a guy to insert for now while they either see if Bryce Eldridge looks like he can do it at the major league level, or they make a more significant trade. I think that Buster Posey, unless the Giants just completely fall apart and fall out of contention, he's probably more likely to make significant moves. And I think we're seeing that with this kind of shakeup now. It is interesting because it's like a balance between roster stability, which they had for so long, but then doing something when it's clear that something needed to be done. Like, this team is just broken. Like, I was broken after watching last night's game, and you can only imagine how the players feel and the front office feeling a responsibility to do something about it. So anyway, I'm very intrigued by what Knizner was able to do in the minors this year. It is a small sample, but that's kind of bonkers results. Just like incredible, like lots of contact, not striking out, but also not chasing, and 85% above average in those two leagues. I don't know why the Nationals cut him loose, but they did. He was going to opt out of the deal apparently, and they just granted him his release. The Nationals have a couple of catchers I suppose they think are better, and Knizner had the option to opt out, and he did, or he was going to, and so they released him. He's spent major league time with the Cardinals, a significant amount, and he's not hit. I mean, that prospect write-up said if he could catch, he'd be an everyday player, but he's played in almost 300 games and he hasn't hit. And I guess I could look at his defense and see, outs above average has him framing runs above average, I should say, fielding run value in runs, and that's accounting for throwing, blocking, framing, arm, and range as a catcher. -17 in 2,052 innings. So, and defensive run saved says -21 runs in 2,052 innings at catcher. So looks like you're getting perhaps he's improved, but a poor defensive catcher who can possibly hit given what we've seen. I'm very intrigued by the offensive performance in AAA, but not intrigued so much by those numbers. And that aligns with what the scouting report says, but that was back in 2020. We'll see, I guess. So Daniel Johnson was signed out of independent ball in May 2025. So just last month, as was Knizner, signed not out of independent ball, but to a minor league deal last month. And he has he spent 2023 with the Padres organization, where he was 11% above average in AA and AAA, stole 30 bases and hit 19 homers. And with those 30 steals, he was caught 8 times. With Baltimore in 2024, he spent the year in their minor league or AAA affiliate, played 1 game at the major league level, but in the minors was about league average, hit 21 homers, stole 17, was caught 10 times. That's a lot of caught stealings. And then this year with the Giants in 26 games, he was about 15, not about, according to weighted runs created plus, 15% above average, hit 6 homers, stole 5 bases, didn't strike out a lot, only 18.3%, 1 caught stealing. And the scouting report, the prospect report, which was updated in 2021, has him as a 70 grade runner. And so it looks like maybe, he's a left-handed hitter, left-handed thrower who can run. And so it's an outfielder. They just optioned Luis Matos, and lefty bat, lefty thrower with speed. I'm checking Baseball Savant right now. His arm strength, this is all we have, and this is from 2021. His arm strength was 84th percentile, and his sprint speed was 81st percentile. And so we'll see. He is 29 years old, just like Knizner, going to turn 30 in July. Or was it Dom Smith who was that age? I forget. But all in all, like the moves that the Posey regime has made, you look at Justin Verlander, who's been arguably the worst starter the Giants have. When you look at the young guys, you look at Logan Webb, you look at Robbie Ray, that, Justin Verlander looks like a guy you'd be fine not having on your roster. And that was $15 million you could have spent on a Paul Goldschmidt or something, for first base. In hindsight, of course, it is easy to say that. But, and then, of course, Willy Adames has been on the struggle bus all season long, continues to be just, it's crazy. I mean, he's hitting 203, 293 on base, 320 slugging. So the track record of moves here isn't exactly looking good. I'm not panicking on Adames. I believe, not to judge him too much by 61 games versus the body of work in his career. But the moves that Buster Posey himself, as president of baseball operations, I'm sure it's a collaborative effort. The moves they've made have not really panned out. And now they make some more significant moves here. And we're just going to have to see how Dominic Smith and Andrew Knizner and Daniel Johnson perform on this roster. But so far, I'm not drawing conclusions, but I'm just pointing out that they haven't exactly had a major success or any success stories really with the moves that they are individually responsible for. So, and they being the new front office. So I'm just trying to take a fair look at it. I'll give Dominic Smith and Knizner and Johnson the benefit of the doubt, but I really do think that down the road, you're either looking at Bryce Eldridge getting promoted, or you're looking, if Dominic Smith doesn't perform, you're looking at a more significant move like a trade. I've been talking about Ryan O'Hearn for a while now. He's having a great season for the Orioles, who are, I don't want to say out of contention. They've won now 4 in a row. I keep checking. So they're 9 games out of a wild card spot. They're even more games out in the division, but they are playing well right now with a 4-game winning streak. So maybe not ready to sell, but O'Hearn, a free agent at the end of the season. And if the Orioles are out of contention, he very almost certainly will be dealt. And the Giants, with kind of desperation at first base, could be the team to go out and get him. Or if they think Bryce Eldridge is ready, then that could be the move. And this guy, 20 years old, raking in Double-A, and just promoted to AAA. So that's very exciting, and we will get more into that later on. But that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening today. You are now Locked On Giants.